We all lived within walking distance or bicycle distance of my grandparents, and in those days that's what you did. You stayed as a family pretty much together, and their farm was the center of all the activity, and in those days that was what you did. And it was a great way to grow up because it was being around all the animals, getting to see how they're born. We saw calves born, we saw horses born, pigs. I mean, you name the scope, we got to see them be born. And in this, by the same operation, we also saw them be slaughtered for meat purposes for all of our family. And so we saw the life and death of a farm, and that's life and death like for all of us. The Guest Ranch was a project of my grandfather's. He had the land out at the Pinnacle Peak area, and he paid $1 an acre in those days, and it just boggles my mind to think about what that was like. And so he had decided that this was something that was different, that the land would be used well, and that he wanted to try a guest ranch. It became apparent that it would be good for all of us if my father took over running the guest ranch, and my mom was the hostess and greeting, and we were outside all the time. I mean, there was always a hike to take, or one of the guests would like to go somewhere around the property, and if I knew how to get there, my folks would say, "Peggy, you can take them down to this or that," or and we built forts there too, my brothers and I, and we were out admiring the flowers, or going on a little hike, and we collected rocks because we had pretty wonderful wranglers who were pretty skilled on horseback. That one of them taught me to gallop and canter, and I mean, and there were paths and roads that were plowed out that direction that you could ride for miles, and cantering was my favorite thing to do. And so every once in a while he'd take me out and he'd say, "Oh, okay, let's canter," and off you'd go, and it was just, you know, the wind in your hair and the feeling of freedom, and it was just, it had this big animal underneath you that was just gliding across the desert, and it was just that was a special time. I can remember that very well. It always smelled good on the desert. It was always, especially when it rained, but even when it wasn't raining, it smelled. I can always think of the greasewood and some of the things that you always knew you were on the desert when you smelled them. And there were lots of Indians had been up in that area, and after a good rain, we would go out and eyes down, looking at the ground, look for pieces of pottery, shards, and every once in a while we'd find a bead, a turquoise bead, or we would find, best of all, was an arrowhead, and different sized arrowheads. Some of the little tiny ones were to kill birds, and then they went up in size depending on the animal. But we found those kinds of things, and that was great fun. My grandfather was a big part of my life. I was the oldest, and I got to go and do things with him that I just to this day cherish. My grandfather was an outdoorsman and loved to be out and doing, and he did everything from teaching me about planting a garden to hunting doves. He taught me how to clean them, and he and I would stand at the kitchen sink for hours cleaning these birds. And that's not something that I use every day, but it was interesting, and my girlfriends all thought that was the yuckiest. Why would you want to do that? And then he taught me how to fish. So he just taught me a lot of things that I still use today, and hopefully have passed some of them on to my kids and to my grandchildren.